Yesterday, March 23rd, was the 15th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, which some people still call Obamacare. Now, I've looked at our numbers. I know that a bunch of you were not following the news very closely back in 2010. Some of you weren't even driving yet. So I need you to know how important the Affordable Care Act was and still is today and why it matters. 45 million Americans have health coverage right now, today, under the Affordable Care Act. That's about 1 in 8 Americans. Here in North Carolina, the ACA covers about 1.3 million people, or about 12% of the entire state. A lot more people than that have actually been covered at some point, because one of the things the ACA did was allow you to keep healthcare coverage when you're between jobs. So you lose your healthcare coverage and you can get on an ACA plan before you find your next gig. The Affordable Care Act is probably the single most important and successful piece of legislation passed in the last 40 years, but it was a huge political fight at the time, and it remains controversial to this day. To oppose the ACA, some politicians like Sarah Palin invented these insane stories about it, like that it would create death panels that would kill off elderly people, which obviously never happened, but that was a huge thing, and a lot of people just ran with it. The whole death panels thing showed politicians like Sarah Palin how they could invent insane lies about almost anything, and some people would just believe it because of their partisanship, and we see the consequences of that today. President Barack Obama led the development of the Affordable Care Act, and the only reason it passed at all is because Democrats controlled Congress and had 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. When it passed, not a single Republican in Congress voted for it, and repealing the ACA became this huge obsession on the right for years, even though they never actually did it. There's this meme on the internet where people tell Gen Zers what used to be totally legal in American healthcare before the ACA, and they just don't believe it, but it was actually true. For example, many healthcare insurance companies used to impose lifetime caps on your healthcare costs that they would cover, and after that, you were just screwed, and the ACA made that illegal. The ACA required insurers to cover preventative care. Before the ACA, just being a woman was considered a pre-existing condition that healthcare insurance companies were allowed to deny you coverage for. Health insurance companies were allowed to retroactively cancel your coverage for no clear reason, and the ACA banned that and required them to give you 30 days of notice. The Affordable Care Act was not the one perfect solution to healthcare, but it was a good first step, and there's still a lot more to do. The ACA is why tens of millions of Americans can see a doctor today, and we are lucky to have leaders who continue to fight for it.